how we prepare a monthly report for an advisory board. So this is a template I use. So when I first started my first business, we set up an advisory board very early on. It would be the number one thing I would put down to my success. Other than who you are as a person and those traits that are going to be, a long-term struggle to change, you've got to be resilient, you've got to be coachable. The ability to stop, take stock of where you are, and look at how the business has performed across every aspect is just so critical. And most entrepreneurs know this, but don't make the time to do it because it's just, running the business is flat out. So you don't have time to stop and do the reports. So the whole concept of having an advisory board is you then have external people who you are accountable to, and you have to have your reports ready on a particular day. And the number of times when my clients are like, yeah, I'll send it through the day before, and that morning when I'm on a flight to wherever we're holding the board, and it's not even in my inbox by the time I jump on board the flight, because they're pushed to the last minute to get it done, but they get it done. And honestly, 80% of the benefit that any business derives from doing the reports comes from preparing the reports. By the time I look at them, I'm like, what's going on here? They've gone, yeah, we saw that. Here's what's going on, and here's why, and this is what we're going to do differently going forward. So the number of times you see problems that are avoidable, or there are problems that can be fixed, but you only know them when you stop and measure. So that's the huge advantage that I would say any business should have external people that it's accountable to, whether that's a formal board of directors, whether it's an advisory board, whether it's just external advisors that you meet with. Just make sure that when you do it, they're people who aren't going to just go, oh, that's okay. If you meet with your accountant once a month and they prepare the reports for you, that's no good. You need to prepare the reports so you know what's going on. And if the accountant's going to let you off lightly and go, oh, well, okay, we'll just get them ready for next month, that's no good at it. I remember one of my early advisory boards, I had my 3 senior managers there, my department heads, and I had not had time to do the reports, and I budged some of the figures just in the accounting software just to get it done. And the chair of the board started asking some pointed questions as to why things didn't add up and why they were so different from previous months and year to date. And I admitted that, I didn't actually have time, so I sort of just budgeted about 2 a.m. last night just because I needed it done. I needed to get some sleep. And he cracked it. He threw the report over his shoulder and he tore strips off me in front of my senior team. And his comment was, there's no point in looking at incorrect information. You cannot make good decisions with bad data. And he said, right, are any of the reports in this package accurate? Now, at that point, I can tell you what, every meeting from then on, I made sure those reports were up to scratch. But had it been, oh, that's all right, maybe next month, the report quality would have just slipped. So it needs to be someone who you respect, who will hold you to account to making sure you have those reports done. So we'll dive into it. This is as I said, the template that we use. Cover sheet, you're then going to see private party, which is saying if you've got this and you shouldn't have, go away. No one ever does that, so don't send it to people who shouldn't have your commercially in confidence information. Now we then look at values, purpose, and brand promise. Now these are things that don't change. They're not going to change month to month. They shouldn't even really change year to year. They will occasionally change, but it's just, I think every business should have these up on the wall where they should see them. I think every business that has a board of advisors or a formal board that only comes in once a month or once a quarter, they should be showing these as well. Just to remind them what the core part of the business is, what it is that they're trying to achieve, what they hold dear, and what they won't compromise on. So if you don't have core values, then it's not urgent for starting an advisory board. Get the advisory board going, but at some point you want to sit down and figure it out with yourself, if there's any other founders, and possibly with the team. It's up to you. What are the values that you live by, and have them there. Purpose. People used to call it vision, mission, values. So many times I've been in seminars where people are struggling to explain the difference between vision and mission. So I would call it vision, purpose, and values. It just makes it obvious to me. What's the purpose? Why are we doing this? And here we're putting our brand promise in as well. Now, if you're looking at vision, we're going to look at what's our BHAG, what's our big, hairy, audacious goal. So, if you haven't read the book by Jim Collins and another guy who I can never remember, I would definitely read it. It's called Built to Last. One of the best business books I've ever read. They came up with the term BHAG. It needs to be short and pithy, so it needs to be in that sort of font, in that sort of text, and take up about that much space. If it's a paragraph long, if it's more than a sentence, no one will remember it. It won't have the impact. It needs to be something that here's what we're going to do, and say by when. Just like with all goals, if you're not putting a time frame to it, we want to be a $100 million business. Great. When? If you just put that there, then you can be working on that for the next 50 years. But if you go, we'll be a $200 million business by 2025, you've now got a goal. Right, that's when it's going to happen, by the end of financial year 2025. Awesome. So look at that every month and have it up on your desk. Look at it every day. But for your advisors, make sure they see it for every meeting. We then look at a roadmap. So this is just the roadmap going ahead. What are the next 5-year key goals? So again, if your goal was for perhaps an exit, successful exit for a business that's 100, 200 million, whatever it is that you're turning over, by then you're going to exit that for a multiple of profit by 2025. Okay, well, what are the milestones along the way? Where are you going to be in 1, 2, 5 years time on the path to making a successful exit in 2025? Now, there's two things there. Where are you, and what are the key metrics? So how are we measuring success? So 2025 is going to be a successful exit. 2023 may be, look, we're set up, ready to sell. You obviously want to prepare that a couple of years out because you're going to look at the last few years for the books, and we're turning over X amount, now consolidating and systemizing. So you might already be at your target revenue or your target profit by then, and you're going to work that back. So again, this is just something to look at. All my reports have these little speedometers, I suppose you'd call them, but it's a case of going, you just drag that arrow around and go, look, here as the entrepreneurs, the founders, here's where we feel we are. Are we on track? Are we way off track? Are we absolutely smashing it? So that's a key part of your dashboard there. Actions from previous meetings. So for your first meeting, this is going to be blank. During the meeting, we're obviously going to, I'll always have 2 copies of this open, and I will be filling in actions that come up as we discuss things during the meeting. So who's responsible? I like the Steve Jobs term, DRI, which is directly responsible individual. It should not be a group. It can be a group who are going to do the work, but there needs to be an individual who is accountable, that is the person who's going to get their ass kicked if the job isn't done. It doesn't matter how many people they have to coordinate to get to work on that goal. They are the person who is reporting to either the CEO or the board that he's done or not, and they are the person who will have their ass handed to them if it's not done. So there needs to be an individual responsible for every task. When, again, it needs to be timely. So, we're going to implement these new systems. All right, great. When? Set the timeline, and then what is it? The status is something we're going to look at going, okay, it's complete, it's underway, we haven't got to it yet. Just let us know where it's at, and you discuss it each meeting, obviously. Overall business health. So this is, I'd also consider this a dashboard. So you're looking in a glance for, again, these are people who are coming into your business once a month. So while you know your business backwards, they don't. Give them a quick rundown. Overall, I feel that the health of my business over the last month has been, and delete the Lorem Ipsum. The 3 biggest challenges or opportunities for me or for my business or for our business this month are 1, 2, and 3. Great, awesome. You're going to run down that quickly. You're going to get questions from your advisors, and they're going to then start to know, right, we need to focus on that. So if it's a big thing, you might have had an offer for a merger acquisition. Righto, that's a huge topic to discuss. Well, let's make sure we get through the report, but let's make sure we allow time for that. So in your chairman's head, they're going to start to go, right, here's how I'm going to assign time, because I can see that we need to allow time for discussions of some key stuff that's come up. And your priorities. So you can see the 1, 2, and 3 are black, 4 and 5 are grey. I am a really strong advocate of having 3s. I can remember 3 core values. I can remember 3 goals. As soon as I started to do 5, I used to do 7 areas of goals, and each of those had sub-goals. All it did was set me up to miss something. There's just too many of them to keep on top of. So I'm going to say, right, here are the 3 things that I'm absolutely going to hit. These are my top priorities. If nothing else happens, these 3 will. These are the absolutely most important. I'm going to smash them. And of course, I'm going to get a million other things done too, because business and there's 100 things going on every day. But these are the things that if push comes to shove, I'm going to prioritize above all else. So when we look back at our roadmap for our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, this is what are our 12-month priorities? Where is this business going to be in 12 months? If you have to go to 4 or 5, go to 4 or 5. That's what I put in there. No, you can't go to more than 5. Well, not if you work with me. I think you should really try and discipline yourself. The ultimate is to have 1. If you can have 1 key metric, that means if this thing is right, then the rest of the business is in check, then great. And the best example I ever got from that was an employee who was he was a manager, and I was putting him through his goals so that we knew and could assist him in achieving what he wanted. And we look at it in 3 areas: in personal, career, and wellness. For employees, for entrepreneurs, we look at it as personal, business, and wellness. His wellness goal in 10 years was to have a body fat percentage of less than 11%. I'm like, dude, that's pretty random. I've never heard that before. He played sport, and the sporting team he played for at a reasonably elite level used to measure their body fat percentage 3 times: start of the season, middle of the season, end of the season. And he said to me, look, if my body fat percentage is under 11%, then I know I'm exercising a minimum of 5 days a week. I've got my diet on track, and I'm not going out drinking more than 1 night a week. So as soon as any one of those things pops, if I forget, and start just eating some crap, don't manage my diet and plan my meals, if I'm not training a minimum of 5 days a week, or if I end up going out on Friday and a Saturday night, I know that it'll pop above that in a heartbeat. So that was his 1 metric, which had 3 sub priorities straight away that he knew he had to get. And each of those had 100 other little things: that managing diet, making sure that he makes time for exercise. They all have another, branches out like the branches of a tree. But by having 1 metric, he knew that his wellness, well, for him, his health at the time as it was on track. We used to call it health. I mean, I think wellness, because mindfulness is more important. But for him, when we looked at health, that was it. So if you can come up with 1 metric for your business, that means if this metric is on track, everything else is in order, fantastic. That is the platinum standard. So you want to look at that every month. Financials. So that's just a heading. We're now going to dive into financials. So these are the sort of things that your accountant's going to prepare. You need to know these numbers. You can delegate it, but you need to make sure you don't abdicate it. So the difference between abdication and delegation is abdication, you go, oh my God, someone else can do these numbers. Thank goodness I never have to look at that again. And you leave it. That's abdication. That doesn't work in any part of your business. Delegation is assigning someone a task, trusting that they'll do it well, but then verifying that the task is done accurately and correctly. If you don't know the numbers for your business, you have got a problem. Numbers are key. That's what this whole thing is about. It's having a report where the numbers are there. If you don't know the example of Clive Peters, I love it. It's he was the second biggest. Well, the chain was the second biggest retailer, second only to Harvey Norman in Australia, and it had gone great guns for 20 odd years. It then went bankrupt because the bookkeeper who had been with Clive Peters from day dot embezzled $18 million in 6 months. Now, Clive Peters has said, I trust this woman implicitly. She's handled all my book from day dot. I'm going to leave her to it. One day she got the idea, bang. 6 months later, she bought herself houses in Tahiti or somewhere in tropical islands and cars and all sorts of wonderful things, and his business was bankrupt because he didn't trust but verify. So this is not okay for your bookkeeper or your accountant to do. They can help you prepare them, but you need to know these numbers, and you should really be preparing and inputting these reports because you need to know these numbers off the top of your head. If you ever are looking for investment, then that is an absolute must because they will ask you questions. They expect you to know them. If you don't know them, it's a huge red flag. And the reason it's a huge red flag for an investor is because it says this entrepreneur or this founder isn't all over their business. They don't know what's going on. Huge red flag. So again, we've got one of these lovely slides with our speedometer, our dashboard. And this is just looking at overall. What's our monthly revenue? Was it greater or less than budget? Cost of sales, overheads, and monthly profit. So you're putting it just in a summary slide before we dive into the numbers. The reason is that a lot of people, when they look at P&Ls, balance sheets, cash flows, they see a table of numbers, they get intimidated and their eyes glaze over. you obviously, if you're a big enough company that you've got an advisory board that's structured of different members, you're going to have people there who are financially literate. You may have people there who, for whatever reason, don't have those skills. But when you're bringing to some of these meetings your heads of departments, you don't need them to act as if they know what's going on, but actually be too scared to put up their hand and say, like, don't have a clue, because I'm head of operations and these numbers I can't pull them out of a table. So this is a quick summary slide. We then dive into the things like we actually start to look at it. And then again, this is a really boiled down version of a profit and loss. But we're going to put in, what are our monthly actuals? So what did we achieve in here? What were our costs of sales? Therefore, what was our gross profit? Gross profit is a key measure for almost every business. They are the cost of sales are the things that you pay more or less of when you sell more. So if you've got an office and you've got to pay for electricity and you've got 2 spare desks, then your rent, your electricity, our overheads, so your telephone lines, they're going to be sitting down here, because it doesn't matter how much you sell this month, they're going to stay static. But if you have got a situation where you've got to pay for a product that you're selling, then the more products you sell, the more you have to buy. If it's a service, then the more of that service that you sell, the more people you have to engage and pay a wage or a salary to deliver that service. So that's your variable costs. So when we look at gross profit, that's a key measure of efficiency. So you need to learn the difference between gross profit and net profit. So net profit is simply take out the overheads. And we're looking at a percentage there. You'll set a target for what percentage of gross profit, so what efficiency you want to achieve with the business. So if you're selling a widget and you sell it for $100 and you pay $70 for it, then that's your only cost. Then your gross profit is 30%. You may go, look, we want to try and increase that, especially service-based businesses. It's absolutely critical for. So whether you're delivering on an IT project, or whether it's a construction project, or there's any other service at all where you're paying for labour, then you can't guarantee how long it's going to take someone to do that project. You need to make sure that you're monitoring. That is your absolute gold metric if you've got a service-based business, because you can say, right, we've allowed 150 man hours for this project, and then it goes and takes your staff 180. Well, you just lost money, versus it takes them 120. You need to know where that's at. So watch that metric. Every business should be watching that metric. Overheads, then what percentage of your overall sales is your overheads? Because again, you want to watch that. You don't want to let it creep up. When I first started, my first business was a construction-based business. We were in commercial construction. We had 15 revenue-generating staff, and so out on sites delivering projects for clients. I ended up with 5 people in the office, admin people. I had one person who just did filing. We're in a construction boom. We were making money hand over fist. It was great. So I had a 3-to-1 ratio of drag, non-revenue generating staff members to revenue generating staff members. We now operate that company, still going in Melbourne. Now instead of 15 on site, there's over 100 on site. We operate that on an 11-to-1 ratio. Every 11 revenue generating staff out on sites delivering projects to clients, we have 1 staff member who backs them up with support in the admin office. And we learned that through a downturn. Oh shit, we're losing money. So you want to monitor that percentage of overheads, and you want to set a target of where you want it to be, and then make sure it just doesn't creep up, because when you're making good money, it has a way of just creeping up. EBIT is earnings before interest and tax. It is just another name for profit. So typically when you look at your profit, they use EBIT or EBITDA. It just is a term that says, look, here's your profit. If you have got a loan to a bank and you're paying interest, you take the interest off. You don't record the tax that you're going to pay on that profit. You simply record the raw profit. So that's what's EBIT. And then what percentage? Obviously, that number that everyone wants to know, the bottom line. What percentage of profit have we made? And then your monthly budget. So if you don't have a budget, send us an email. We've got especially if you're using Xero, there's a really quick way to create a budget. There's a training that we did that's build your budget in an hour, and you can literally do it in an hour with Xero. Once it's in there, it is great because you can just so quickly prepare stuff. So I'm just going to show you this, which is the Xero budget, and it quickly comes up with not only what you actually did, but what your budget was and what your variance was. So it's a great tool. So if you're not already using Xero, I would strongly recommend it. You can grow beyond it at about 50 mil, but until you get to there, it's better than any other product on the market. You want to also look at year to date. So early on in the financial year, July, August, September, those aren't going to be massively different. As you go on, it becomes more and more important. So you're going to look at your financials. Now, for this template, I've only put in a profit and loss. Depending on the business, cash flow can be essential. So it depends on whether you're in a positive cash flow business. If your clients are paying you up front and you get to pay everyone else later, which even your staff, they will do the work, and then whether they're filling their timesheets or whether they're on salary, you pay them at the end of the period. So they might have a fortnightly pay or a weekly pay or a monthly pay. But whatever it is, at the end of that period, they've done the work already. So they've delivered you their part of the deal. And then at some point in the following week, you'll put through that pay. Now, that is providing you positive cash flow, provided that your client paid up front. If, on the other hand, client says, I'll pay you 30 days from the end of next month, but you've got to pay your staff now, you've got a negative cash flow business. So depending on the business, cash flow reporting can become far more important than profit and loss reporting. Also, depending on the business, the balance sheet may be the key thing that we need to look at each month. If you're looking for loans from any major institutional investor, the balance sheet is the thing they will go to. They don't give a stuff about how much profit you're making, they want to see the balance sheet. And I've seen companies where they've got huge lines of credit with one of the major four, and they were making good money. So they were doing big turnovers, they were making big profits, and the bank said, we're pulling the line of credit. And they couldn't understand why. And it's because the bank went and looked at their balance sheet. So depending on your situation, if you're looking for investment, if you're looking for a loan, you need to be looking at your balance sheet. So I haven't put it here because it's one of those things where everyone can understand a P&L. It's not too difficult. It's revenue minus expenses equals profit. Balance sheet is more complex. Cash flow is simple. Cash flow is, okay, great. So we've made X amount of dollars. When does that arrive in my bank account? And when am I due to pay all these people, my staff, my rent, my whoever else has loaned me money, whether that's a supplier who said, I'll give it to you now, pay us later. You need to be managing that. So again, this is a template we customize for each business. Cash flow and working capital. I'm not going to dive too deep into this slide. This is probably half the businesses I work with. We end up deleting this slide. They're a business that their clients pay them up front and they get to pay everyone else later. So it's not a huge issue if you're holding stock or if you're doing works in progress. So that's a WIP, which means you can either, if you've got a product that you're selling off the shelf, you've got to buy it and have it on the shelf for people to walk in and purchase. You need to hold that stock. If you are doing work on credit, which means we'll do the work now and the client will pay us later, and that's your works in progress. So that's the same as holding stock. Because if you go and do $500,000 worth of work this month, but you're not going to get paid for that until the end of next month, then you've just extended a line of credit to that client for $500,000. And that's the same as having $500,000 worth of stock on your shelves until next month. So if you're a negative cash flow business, this becomes an essential slide, and it's one that we'll look at in great depth. If you're cash flow positive, we'll end up deleting it and going, you know what, you don't need to stress about it, especially if you're not holding stock. So it depends on the business. I put that in there because cash is king. I'm sure you've all heard that saying, but there's so many businesses who can make good money, but if they run out of cash and they can't pay their staff or they can't pay their bills, they go to business, but they can never collect on the profit. So make sure you're watching it if you're in a business that's critical. Age payables are bad debts. So again, some of the businesses this is more relevant to than others. If your clients are paying up front and you're not offering them anything until they're paid, this is a slide that you're going to delete. If you're extending credit for whatever reason, which could be going, oh, that's right, you didn't have it this time. You're a long-term customer, no worries, idiot. Then they will end up going, oh, actually, the reason I couldn't pay is because I'm in trouble. Now that I've already got what I wanted, it's like paying off my credit card debt. It's like, yeah, I'm already enjoying that. Why would I have to freaking pay for it versus saving up for it? So if you've got debtors, we need to look at them. Who is it? How many days overdue? So typically they only go on here if they're over 60 days late. Might not straight line, they're under 60 days. So days overdue comes in here. So is it 60, 90, 45? If you want to put them on there at less, it depends on your business. How much they owe you and what action's been taken. So are you still giving them pestering emails or are you now sending their collectors alerts? Compliance status. This is key for, especially if you're going to look at some point down the track getting on other directors. So whether there's investors who want to become a director, or you can bring in other people. As a director of a company, you have responsibilities under the Corporations Act. Now, the first two on there are, have you paid your GST and your PAYG? So that's going to the ATO. As a director of a company, if you haven't paid your GST or PAYG, and they send you a notice that says pay or close your business, and you don't respond to that within 21 days, they can issue a director's penalty notice, which means you become personally liable for that debt. At the same time, don't get scared. The ATO is the most benign creditor in the world. Banks, when they loan you money, they want it paid back on time. The ATO is always pretty happy to let it run out until they notice, and then they go, okay, let's organise a payment agreement. Once you've got a payment plan in place, just make sure you pay it on time and meet your other obligations. But people think the ATO's got horns. It's a responsibility. If you don't pay them, they will eventually get nasty. If you're in a negative cash flow business, it is something that sometimes you can stretch, but you still need to know. Just don't be blind to it. Know what it is, know what that debt is, and have a plan for how you're going to handle it. Superannuation, if you've got staff, are you paying it to the funds? You can pay by the ATO, especially if they've noticed and giving you penalties, you'll be forced to pay by the ATO, or you can use their payment platform. But just, again, is it up to date? That's something that they really, really care about. The ATO may not be too harsh on you on GST and PAYG. There may be some leniency there. They will not be so on superannuation. It is critical that you know where that's at again. So, it could be, and this is just a traffic light system, red, green, yellow, and you put comments in there, but just make sure you know where it's at. Even if you bring in external advisors who are not ASIC appointed directors, under the legislation where they can issue director's penalty notice, they can issue penalties to what's called a shadow director. This is a really broad term that there's not a great definition of, other than it's a case of they go, a shadow director is anyone who had a reasonable ability to know or should have known that the business wasn't meeting its obligations. So if you're bringing an advisor to report on each month, they're still going to care about this, even if they're not actually an equity holder or director in your business, because you're reporting to them on this top level stuff. And if it's not up to date, and they should have known, technically they could be roped in if you were put into administration or liquidation. So they're going to care about this. Work cover, have you got any loans? Are they up to date? Your public liability insurance, every business should have that. Business interruption insurance, management liability. There's a lot of businesses I see who they need business interruption. If there's a fire and they're going, shit, we've lost all our computers, we want to make sure that we get the ability to have a short-term lease or in a co-working space or a serviced office, and we can buy new computers and we can keep going so we're not losing money. Most people don't get management liability insurance. It is pretty cool. Just Google it and have a look at all the things it'll cover. Like, it'll cover you for audit insurance, for example. So if the ATO says, right, you've been randomly selected, we're going to audit you, that can cost you tens of thousands of dollars. The first time I got audited, I'm like, wow, I had the accountant for so long to prepare everything. You had the bookkeeper downstairs, and it cost me a heap just to get everything absolutely, not just squeaky clean, but ready. Because it's not a case of going, oh yeah, everything's well and done, and you've done it responsibly. It's another thing to be able to show that. I could claim that through the insurance. Yeah, there was I had to pay out to an extent, as you're going to with any insurance, and you can pay down the excess. But after the excess, it covered all of that. It covers you for if there's any charges brought against you as a director, it will pay your legal bills. It's just something that, have a look at it. Every single director should have. I won't sit on a company that doesn't have that and doesn't cover me. Cyber attack insurance. I think more and more, everything we do is on computers. If someone got in and run amok, how much would that cost you? It's a discussion I have with a lot of my clients. It depends on how much it's going to cost you. Tools of trade, depending on your business. But make sure you're looking at this every month. It's a quick thing. Just turn it red, green, or yellow and change those traffic light colors. Key metrics. So the financials are things that if you just sit with an account, they will generally just sit there and go through your financials. They're not going to sit there and go through other key metrics, mainly because they don't understand them. I don't understand why entrepreneurs go to accountants and think that that's the right person to give them business advice. Accountants understand numbers, not necessarily business. If you're going to an accountant who's giving you advice, make sure they're running their own business. Make sure it's of a comparable size with your business and that they understand it. So, if you're a sole trader, that's fine. Go and get advice from a sole trading accountant. If you've got 20 staff, you want to be talking to an accounting firm who's got 20 staff. If you've got 200 staff, same thing. You're probably looking at a tier 2, at least by then, but you're looking at a partner in a business that's running their own accounting firm because they understand it. Otherwise, the accountants don't actually get it. They just look at the numbers. So these are the key metrics that are critical and should be reported on why you need more than an accountant, I believe. So the first thing we look at is what are our immediate strategic goals. So we've looked at our annual priorities. Well, these may be the things that we've decided for the next month or the next quarter. I think a quarter is a good time frame. Look at what are we going to do in the next 90 days. That are, again, the things that we're going to make sure we prioritize above all else. Again, do 3, maximum 5. If you can get 1, fantastic. Customers. There are very few businesses I'm involved with where what your customers think of you isn't absolutely critical. Now, this says NPS. NPS, as you said, we can see it on the bottom of that dashboard, stands for Net Promoter Score. It is a really quick and simple way to measure customer satisfaction, and it goes like this. You ask your customers, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend us to a friend or colleague? Then they click on a number from 1 to 10. If they're a 9 or 10, they're a net promoter. They're out there actively going, this is a great business, you should use it, they're fantastic. If they're a 7 or 8 neutral, they're like, it's all right, I'm happy enough, but I'm not, bragging about you at barbecues on the weekend. If they're a 6 or below, they're a net detractor. When someone says, hey, I need this, they go, don't use these guys. Whatever you do, don't use those guys. That's a net detractor. Why does it work? Because when you get sent an email or a message saying, hey, would you mind taking a 5-minute survey? I'm like, no, go away, because I don't have 5 minutes unless you've really, really, really pissed me off, in which case, of course, I'll take 5 minutes to explain to you all the ways that you annoyed me. But other than that, no, I don't have 5 minutes just to donate to you. But if you send me an email where it's just click on these and each one of the numbers is a hyperlink, and as soon as you click on it, the response is recorded, it'll take you to a page that says, would you mind giving us more information? Great. If they do, they do. If they don't, they don't. But it's easier to click the number than it is to go away. So how happy are your customers with your business? Detail any specific feedback. So, when they do go and put in those comments, let's look at it. Let's keep that. By the way, you can report on what you got for last month, but keep that somewhere in a database or a spreadsheet where you can look back, and eventually you're going to sort those and categorize them and see if there's any trends. What are your customers, consistently complimenting or complaining about? What percentage of your revenue from year to date has come from repeat customers? This is annual recurring revenue, ARR. It is the gold standard that everybody wants. Why? Because firstly, once you've earned it, you don't have to market to them or sell to them again. They're on a subscription-based package. They come back again and again, happy days. That revenue just continues to roll in. Why else is it good? Because it massively escalates your business valuation. For a low intellectual property, low IP business, you will find that a typical company will get 3 to 5 times multiple of their profit, of their EBIT, as their valuation. If you have a high annual recurring revenue, or all your revenue is coming from recurring sources, then it will boost you to between 5.7 and 9 times straight away, just because your revenue is recurring. So someone can buy your business and go, well, I know that this revenue is going to keep on rolling. They're not only just coming in because they like Craig. Whatever the business, it's not a case they've got a personal relationship. They're signed up, buying the service, and it'll continue. A lot of the time, ARR high multiples, you'll also have an earn-out clause. It's not a huge deal. It just means they're going, we want to make sure they are going to stick around. But you want to look at that and you want to figure out what target you want to have depending on your business. Sales. So there's 3 different slides I use here. You want to be looking at your sales process. These are just ideas. We customize this for each business. But you're looking at here. We're saying what's the number of new inquiries? How many quotes have you issued? How many times have you shown someone around your service? How many times have you offered it? Whatever it is, the total value and what's your win rate. You may just simply have a sales funnel. How many inquiries? How many quotes? How many meetings? How many projects won? Again, those terms are going to change, and you may have 7 layers. It depends. What you're looking for is how many are coming through and how many filter down through the funnel at each stage. So how many people go, oh, I'm interested in that? Of those, how many take your next step, whatever that next step may be? Of the ones who take the next step, how many do you get to actually sit face to face with and go, well, here's a proposition? And how many of those then actually say, yep, cool, I want that? You know, if you're selling a product, people go, oh, that's interesting. I might have a look at that. How many people land on your website? Then how many people go, oh, tell me more, or straight to buy? You know, it depends on the purchase price. If you're buying something for $5, then you're not going to have necessarily a 6-step process. It's going to be, they saw a Facebook ad, they clicked on the link, they bought. Game over. If, on the other hand, selling them something that's $20,000, or the old construction company, the commercial construction company, we would say multiple $1 million, it's not a 2-second decision. It's a months-long, protracted, painful process that has 8 or 9 stages that we go through in order to get the client across the line. So it depends on the size of what we do. If you're doing quotes, this is a simply a copy of something that we still use in the construction company. So when I was running the Physio and Pilates studio that I owned, I didn't look at quotes because we didn't do quotes for clients. We simply brought people in, we did initials, so we monitored on this case. How many people inquired? How many people came in to try our discounted first time? How many people then decided to stay, and how many of them became annual recurring revenue clients long term? If you are doing this, then we use this system. So this is literally just a copy of something from the construction company. We've got every month 3 lines. So the first one you can see, I'm looking at September. This one is, what was the value that we've resolved? So how many of our quotes have we got answers on? The white one is the total quote. So you can see the total quote value there was $12 million for that month. We've got answers at this point on $10 million. They've decided on $10 million worth. The middle line is how much did we win. So in this case, while we quoted $12 million, the $10 million that people have made decisions on, we won nothing out of that. So that was a crappy month. You can, if you're interested in that, I'm happy to send you a spreadsheet of how you can look at that, but that's key to make sure you're watching the sales pipeline. So all these indicators we're looking at are lead indicators. So when you're doing your reports, you're looking at your financial metrics, your profit and loss. That's a lag indicator. It's what has happened. It's historical. Your sales and your pipeline is a lead indicator because you're looking ahead, you're projecting ahead. Your cash flow is a lead indicator. Your profit and loss is a lag indicator. So it's looking ahead versus looking back. So this is absolutely critical. And again, most accountants won't get you doing this. So you need to be doing that. Marketing funnels. I think the absolute minimum that any business should have is 6 marketing funnels. You might have word of mouth. That's great. That's 1. You need another 6. A website is not a lead funnel. A website is just a static thing that people are going to go to check you out. If you're putting Facebook ads up, if you're doing emails out, if you're doing hard snail mail, if you're doing lumpy mail, whatever it may be, if you're putting billboards up on the freeway, it doesn't matter. Just make sure that you're writing down, here are the at least minimum of 6 ways that we are out there marketing this business to bring in new customers or to retain the ones we've got. The description of each of them. Then we're going to report on it. So we're going to look at each of those 6 marketing funnels. You can put your comments in here as the CEO, what happened this month and why. But really, we need a couple of key things. The first one is dollars spent. That's an easy one. How much did I spend on that? The other one is time spent over here. Too many people ignore that. If you have got an in-house graphic designer and they're going to design a billboard for you, now the billboard might cost you 40 grand for a month on a freeway, but you're then going to find that graphic designer spent 3.5 weeks designing that. Now, cool. So, if they've got a month off a year, they're doing 40 weeks a year, 43.9 weeks in Victoria. In Queensland, it's 44, depends on your public holidays. Number of weeks they're doing a year. You go, right, okay. Well, that's 4 weeks, they spent 1/11th of their time. 110 grand a year. That cost me 10 grand. That cost me 10 grand in staff time. Now, if you don't add that in, you think it's only cost you 40 grand. No, it cost you 50. If you could have outsourced that and had someone prepare that banner for you, the marketing company said, yeah, we'll put the banner up on the freeway. They might say, look, for 6 grand, we'll prepare it for you too. Oh, no, I've got an in-house graphic designer. Yeah, well, it turns out it's a hidden cost. It's one you don't think about, but it actually costs you more to do it in-house. So you need to record your time spent. If that's your time, That's the thing that most entrepreneurs undervalue, because they work ridiculous hours and they go, oh, it's just my time. It's easier for me to do it than to pay a lawyer, accountant, graphic designer, whoever to do it. So they do it themselves. Record your time, figure out the value of your time and add that in. Because what you're looking for is, what is your lowest cost per acquisition? This one little thing over here. So how many leads do I generate? How much revenue is estimated from that? But what was my cost per acquisition? For each new client, or for each new dollar of revenue, how much did I have to pay for that? Now, you might find that if you're doing a lot of this yourself, you go, oh, wow, that's great. This cost per acquisition for this marketing stream is really low. Yeah, but it's really time intensive. For every single client you get in that way, you spend 6 hours on that marketing funnel. Add that in, you're like, all right, I'm a finite resource. Once you factor in your time at a reasonable market cost, even if it's not what you pay yourself, and suddenly you go, oh, okay, that's not as scalable as I thought it was. So you need to be reporting on those marketing funnels every single month. This is critical. The sales and marketing are the things that most businesses I see need to fix. If you've got your sales and marketing sorted and you've got a good product or service, bang, there's nothing's going to stop you. You're on a skyrocket. Off you go. But too many people focus on preparing a good product or a good service and then don't market it or sell it well. So you need to look at this, look at how much you're spending and what's costing you every single month. Minimum of 6 funnels. Team and talent. So we don't just want to look at how's the business going, we want to look at the people that are involved in it. Here's the simple thing that I didn't make up, but I use and I love it, which is we're looking at, you can see over here, core values. So we're looking at that on our x-axis. How are they aligned with our core values? Are they highly aligned or are they low? If they're low alignment, that's a problem, because these are the things you value as a business. You need to fix that. If they're high alignment, fantastic. Those are the people you want in your business. Then you look at productivity. How productive are my staff? Are they highly productive or are they really low? And then we've got 4 quadrants here, A, B, and C. And you can see here's B and C players down here. Anyone down here, you can see Joe Deadbeat. If they're low alignment with your core values and low on productivity, it's a no-brainer. They're getting fired. They're not doing any work. They're not aligned with this. Go away. Don't want you in the business. If they are low on productivity, like John Doe up here, but high on your core values alignment, you need to coach them. They need to increase their productivity, but they're already a good fit for the business. So if you can, you're going to work with them. You're not going to work with them forever, but you're going to try and increase their productivity. These guys down here, and you can see I've named this guy Toxic Bob for a very good reason. These guys need to go. These are the guys who kick goals and make you lots of money, and everyone else in the team hates, because they're there doing the backstabbing, the bitching, they're not aligned with your values, they're doing it unethically, and if you leave them there, 2 things will happen. Firstly, you're condoning their behaviour, so you're encouraging other people to go against your core values, so you don't actually value them that much. And secondly, other staff will start to leave, because they will see that this guy who is a performer or this girl who's a performer is hanging around and you're not taking any action, because even though they are toxic to the culture of your business and they go against everything that you say you value and hold dear, because they make you money, they're untouchable. They need to go. They're a really, really tough fire. When they're low on core values alignment, it's the sort of thing that coaching can help, but it's pretty tough. I haven't seen it work in a lot of cases. And obviously you got your A players. Of course your founder's going to be up here. They're your values. So of course you're aligned to them, and the most productive person in the company. But who else have you got there? So just put them around and have a look at it. And it's just a dot and a name that gets dragged around, and you put each of your, depends on the size of your business. If you've got 500 staff, you're not going to have 500 names in here, but you're going to have your key department managers. So there might be 10 or 15 names on there. You shouldn't have more than 7 direct reports. 5 is ideal, but there shouldn't be more than 7 people reporting to any manager. So you need to make sure that you're not out there giving orders to everyone. You only report, give orders to your direct reports, and they go and implement those. You may have them in the next level of management down, but that would be about as far as you'd go. Beyond that, they may prepare one of these for their department and report it back to you in your weekly or monthly meeting with that department head so that you can see how their team's performing and coach them on who they have to get rid of. But from the overall business point of view, the advisors don't want to see 500 dots and they can't just sit. Team training and culture. So culture is absolutely critical. Staff engagement is absolutely critical. This is just a quick way to look at going, what initiatives are we putting in to keep those things in place? And you can see here I've actually used DRI, Steve Jobs' term, Directly Responsible Individuals. So what's the initiative we're doing? Who's going to attend? Who's going to be responsible for making it happen? What's the date? And then our review. So, is it a whole staff thing? Is it senior managers? Is it middle managers? Who's going? What is it? Why? So what training are they doing and how are you doing activities to build culture? Meeting rhythms. Strategy is easy. Strategy is just sitting down, coming up with, here's what we want to do. Oh, wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, we're going to achieve that. That's awesome. I love that big picture. It's painted. It's fantastic. It's exciting. I'm enthused. I'm ready to go. But now I've got to actually do it. That's the bit that sucks. Execution is hard. Strategy is easy. Execution, and I can't tell you how many hundreds of business books I've read. One of the most recent ones I've read is called Scaling Up by Vern Harnish. He's the guy who founded a group called Entrepreneurs Organisation for high-performing businesses that I was a member of for many years. Scaling Up I like because it draws together the best parts of all the business books I've ever read, but rather than just shamelessly copying them, it gives them credit. It says, here's a great idea. We think this is the best strategy we've ever seen or the best approach we've ever seen, and here's where you can go to read about where we got this idea from. And they give full credit to the person who came up with it. They have a very simple formula, which I think is exactly what you need for execution. What are my priorities? So what am I going to do? What are my ideally 3 key priorities or 1 key priority? If you have to, 5. But what are my priorities? Number 2, what are my metrics? So how am I going to measure success? So if one of your priorities is to increase your revenue, it's easy. You're going to be able to measure that. If one of your priorities is to increase staff engagement, you're going to have to think more in depth about how you're going to make that metric work. So how am I going to measure success? And number 3 is meeting rhythms. And that's it. So your meeting rhythms are a daily huddle for every team, a daily huddle for the senior team. Every team needs to get together. And a daily huddle, when I say daily huddle, it should last from 7 to 10 minutes, 15 minutes, absolute max. It should be done standing up so no one gets too comfortable, and it's a quick going around. Okay, what did we achieve yesterday? What are we going to achieve today? What do I need support with from my team? That's it. Quick communication. It opens up. Everyone knows what everyone's doing in that team. It's great. They need to have a more in-depth for maybe an hour once a week just to touch base, communicate our wins, our challenges, get support, help. Communication is key. And again, this needs to come around. What are those priorities and what are those metrics? That's what you need to be talking about. If I'm saying, here's what I achieved yesterday, here's what I'm going to achieve today, here's what support I need. The follow-up question I'd expect from my manager is, how is that aligned to what we need to achieve this month? Oh, it's not, but it has to be done. I have priorities for a month. I remember the first time, as I said earlier, I got audited by the ATO. Tell you what, my monthly priorities changed in a big hurry. I spent a month and a half just preparing for an audit. But I still had priorities that I had to answer to my advisory board. And they're going, yeah, that's nice. You got audited. So what? These are the things you said were the most important. Why have you not done them? Oh, because I'm getting audited. So what? You need to be talking about it and asking those questions. The senior team needs to meet weekly, and that's it might be depending on how big your company is. Your senior team is going to be you and your direct reports. That's one senior team. If you have a huge company with several hundred staff, you're going to have multiple senior teams. They're going to meet and communicate, and then the heads of those departments are going to meet and communicate until eventually you've got up to the direct reports. Just make sure you don't get a manager spending their whole life in meetings. So they really should be in a daily huddle and a senior team daily huddle. And then they're going to have 2 weekly meetings with their direct reports. And then they're going to have a weekly meeting with their peers and their direct superiors. That's it. So it shouldn't be more than 2 one-hour meetings for each staff member each week. And we've said here, all staff report on the KPIs. So have they actually reported in on what their KPIs are? And that's our metrics. And we'll put there also, all senior managers to meet with at least one end user weekly. If you're not doing that, you're going to be out of touch with what's happening. So that's a really great idea. That's from the Rockefeller Habits, which again has been adapted into Scaling Up. And I think that is a absolute must. If you've got those meeting rhythms happening and you've got clear priorities with clear metrics for success, you will execute, and you will execute well. It's the only thing you need to do. Set your priorities, set your metrics, and then make sure you're hitting those meeting rhythms. Yeah. One of the meeting rhythms, obviously, is monthly reporting to someone who's not you, someone who's not involved in the business. Now, that may be they're involved because they're an equity holder, but they're not in day-to-day, or that may be someone who's simply an external advisor, but you have to have a report like this ready for them each month. That's a critical part of your meeting rhythms. Other business. So you're going to bring up anything else in here. Again, on one of those first slides we looked at, it talked about, what are my challenges or opportunities. So if you've got early on in the report, you've said, well, I'll find it again for a sec on this one. Overall health of business, here are my challenges or opportunities, 1, 2, 3. They may not be covered at all in the standard reports, so you're then going to cover them in other business. So this is where it's going to drop in down the bottom, and depending on what those were, the reason we cover it in that slide at the start is because this may be nothing, or it may be where we want to focus most of our energy and attention for this particular meeting. So some months you're going to cool, there's not a lot of other business. We've seen that at the start. We're going to dive in depth through the report. Other times you're going, wow, okay, someone's offered to acquire the business. We need to talk about that. Let's get through the reports. We're going to do that in a much shorter time frame now, and we're going to focus on the critical things that we know are coming up in other business. So again, this is just a simple table. What are my challenge opportunities? CEO comments. Some of my clients will add in huge numbers of data sheets and information here. It depends on what's happening on that month. So, whatever has come up that needs to be discussed, add in the slides. Make sure you put in the information that's needed so that good decisions can be made. Again, you can't make good decisions with bad data. So make sure you're putting in all the key comments, and then you're providing the key data so that you can drill into it if needed, and your advisors can give you good advice, or the equity holders and directors can make good decisions. So, that's the key difference between an advisory board and a board of directors. The board of directors are directors, they will vote, and whatever their decision is the way the company will go. That's the way it works. They can get appointed or dismissed, but once they're there, we've got 5 directors. It doesn't matter that one of them represents 51% of the vote. 5 directors, 3 to 2 is a loss or a win. When you've got an advisory board, they can give you all the advice in the world. It's up to you as the director or the founder or the entrepreneur as to what bits of advice you take up and what you don't. They don't have any actual sway. But you still want to get either good advice, or you want to really well inform your board so they can make good decisions about the strategic direction of the company. Then actions from this meeting. So this will be filled out typically throughout the meeting. So we often put this, while this is a PowerPoint, and we put it onto Google Slides because it's a live doc that people can add to. But you may just have different people, or you may get chair, depending on how many advisors you've got collecting the actions. Those are going to get collated, they're going to get added to this report, and these are going to become that slide at the start, which was actions from previous meeting. Now you may say, we're going to do, I'm going to do something and I'm going to do it by February next year. That's fine. It still goes on the actions. We decided this meeting that was an action you were going to take. Yeah, you got plenty of time to do it, but you're going to make sure that it goes on and it gets reported so that you're held accountable for it. That's it. Final slide. Obviously, for our client, we put, we've got our logo there. We put their logo over here, and say on the first slide. End of report. Now you can add whatever you to that. This is simply a template, and we certainly do customize it for each client. If you're interested in getting a copy of that, simply send us an email. We'll get you to do the business health check so that we know what your business is about, and we can give you some advice on what you want for the template. But I'm more than happy to share this template with anyone who would like it, and we'll provide it to you at no cost. The idea of advisory board is that we provide an advisory service where it is a low-cost entry-level service to get you doing these reports, ready for investment or for growth, so that you can end up with a formal board of advisors. I remember the first time I approached someone who was reasonably well known and would have been great on the advisory board. Like, yep, I'll show up once a quarter. That'll be $60,000. You can call me if you want. Okay. As a growing business, I couldn't have afforded that. As a mature business, I'm like, yep, I'm going to add a heap more than 60 grand a year for me. I'm going to make 10 times that in extra profit. I want you on my board. It's worthwhile paying for. The reason I could convince them to do it is I could show them years worth of reports where they could go, oh, wow, you guys are actually all over this. You're doing business well. I'm happy to be associated with you. under all the legislation that will apply to me, even though I'm not an ASIC appointed director. So doing this in a way that you have an external advisor will help you grow, will help you predict the man traps you're going to fall into, and long term will allow you to graduate to a formal advisory board where you pay big bickies for huge talent. So I would strongly recommend that the one best thing you could do as a business is prepare a report similar to this with key things and key metrics for your business on it, and report to someone who will not take any nonsense every month. All right, guys, got any questions? Let me know. Great seeing you today.